You look a little frazzled.
Oh, we're live.
Hey, sorry, we're late. We're just running a little bit behind, like TJ's trucks.
Hey, listen. That's bullshit. Listen. I was out in the yard. I had a landing gear frozen.
Yo, Rhonda, you can come in here too. Oh, you can't.
I got it at the end, Mike. Do you know anything about the show?
Do I know anything about the show?
So real quick, we were just talking while we were kind of hanging out, waiting for everything to come together. I know we're talking about automation, but me and Mike was just talking about throwing it out there, like for you young salespeople, like for all those people saying like they get tired of cold calls, or the founders, the CEOs, like I get so many requests in my inbox, like who gives a fuck? Like don't let anyone belittle you on LinkedIn or downplay like the grind. The grind is real. And for any of the founders and CEOs that are online talking about how they don't want sales calls or they just get so tired of it, guess what? That's your role. Be a leader. Coach these young people. Teach them how to sell. Teach them how to pitch. It may not be what you're buying, but educate, teach. And that's what we were just talking about. I know that's off topic, but
I've showed Mike some of like the LinkedIn messages I'll follow up with. I'll be like, hey, I appreciate the grind. Like I get it. I love it. I don't even work in clothing, but honestly though, keep it up. I do this maybe, or do that and try that. Good luck. Like Mike, you know what's funny? You put that post out the other day yesterday, something like about, somebody said something about get to know me first before you just do a cold pitch or whatever. I'm like, well, then it's not cold pitch.
Hold up. I'm not here to I have my own job to do, and I would never belittle someone if what I cannot stand, and maybe it's my own issues, right? It's like, I can't even believe I even waste energy on it. But when I see people that can go, I just don't understand how people go out of their way to say, oh my God, I would never do this. It's like, listen, we've all done shitty cold calls. We all it's sales. You got to be persistent. I think today's day, it's like everybody thinks, not everybody, but certain people put it in like, are you going to ask a real true CEO, VP of sales that has a leading team, if he would tell his team 2 follow-ups, you're done. If you don't hear anything from them, you're done. You're not that. Sales isn't for everybody, but bottom line, I don't want to go on a rant. I just cannot stand people that belittle people in general, whether it's, if that person can belittle someone on a social platform for just doing their job, trying to make a living, shame on you. Shame on you. Anyways, automation. Do you need it or don't you?
Preach.
So are we talking automation? Because I got a ton of stuff on this. I think I'm going to go rip with it.
Yeah, let's do it. That was my fault. I kind of got it.
No, so it's like, I think before anything, automation is, I think that people first and foremost, we're going to talk about, the first thing is going to be what? Tech heavy companies that don't know anything about, or that aren't really, they're more heavy in tech, but they don't really have an operational supply chain mind. And then I think you need a blend of both, right? And I think that before you do anything, my approach is, before I even talk about really the supply chain, really do you need automation? What does I'm sitting down with a customer or potential customer. What are their customers' wants and needs? That's how you tailor something. Again, put tech aside, put any solution. I talk about solutions, put any solution aside. What does your customers want and need? Do you know, hey, Mr. Prospect, do you know your customer? What's their want and needs? And then build a strategy around that person's customers' want and needs. Because let's face it, without our customers, we have nothing. And then you tailor a specific strategy. And if they need some type of technology automation, you tailor it first and foremost to their customers' wants and needs. Hey, for instance, example, does your customer have the option, e-com, right? Our direct-to-consumer is big. Does your customer have the option to choose if they get that package there faster or not? Well, no. Do you think that would be a benefit? Well, yeah, because think about it. As a buyer, dude, if you can if I don't see the shipping cost, I want it now, right? Everybody wants it now.
Yep.
Imagine this. You don't show a shipping cost. You just tie it in there. We're not looking at the price, right? So now I'm like, okay, why don't we just allocate that into the price of the product? So it's free shipping. You see free shipping. Then next day air, it's going to get to you in one day. In my head, it's free and it's getting to me. So like that's the type of stuff where I think people talk about automation and technology. They don't even know what their customer even needs, let alone what their customers' wants and needs are.
So, I agree with you. And I think the type of selling that you do that applies to, I think from my side on the brokerage, what I used to try to sell and use technology was, on my end was visibility, being able to automate the no one minds bad news. They just don't want surprises. So can we be ahead of the curve? Can we get the information of a late truck or something that's going on ahead of the game so their customers don't tell them? Visibility through technology, whether it's Macro Point, Trucker Tools, P44, things of that nature. And then I think too, kind of downplaying the automation within the operational, depending on what brokerage you're at or what you're doing goes a long ways too, because the more you can be efficient and automated within your internal processes, that's going to enable you to be more on top of your stuff with your customer. And so one question I have, Mike, sorry to go down that rabbit hole, but wouldn't you think Amazon and their free shipping, their 2-day shipping kind of builds that price in or
You're on mute, I believe.
Can't hear you.
Where you at, dog? Bro. You got a question for me, Brandon? I want to talk.
No, well, I mean, I in your world on the, which I know you've been in the brokerage side, could do a little bit of both, but while he's finding his mic, what would you sell to automation, or when you're getting set up with a client, how would you pitch that on your end?
I sell it as it's filling the gap. So,
yep.
The innovation, the adaptation, the creativity and like customization's all from me. The customer service is from us, because at the end of the day, it's not just the fact that you do it, because other things can be automated, but it's the fact that I think it builds trust from the standpoint of it shows effort, and it shows that you care a little bit. That's something that's huge. But then I talk about automation, technology, and things like that to fill the gaps. As in, there's just certain things that we can make. Efficiency and motion is what I always talk about. And sometimes, if that's going to be the case, you gotta be able to, be in motion and do it that way.
No, we still can't hear you, Mike.
Oh no.
Well, TJ, I'll build on that. I think you're right, and I know that there's huge tech and VC companies. I think they're doing a lot of great things within our industry, and it's going to shift and change it. But I think the human element's always going to be important. I think one thing that when I was thinking about this topic, at my previous company, there was a lot of automation that was built in that I didn't realize until I moved to another company. And that plays into EDI, that plays into tracking, and some of those automations that you can build on top of your already set processes can free you up to do those things that you're talking about, TJ. Mm-hmm. To be able to reach out in advance, to be able to have better communication. I don't think that this, in my opinion, I don't think that we can ever get to a fully automated. Not everyone can be in a fully automated system. I think it's going to be a little bit of both.
Has anyone ever trust me, I've been in integrations that were super deep, and I laugh when I see certain people just talk about, listen, visibility, automation, it's going to be great. Listen, it's a pain in the ass. And I can tell you this you're hearing from the horse's mouth. I've lost more deals that I've sold because of how shitty the integration goes or overselling it. So I think listen, you wouldn't believe I could probably ask 50 companies that have a TMS, why are you integrated into your ERP? That's the biggest step right there, right? There's certain things that need to be automated. Your manual ordering process. When your PO gets kicked over, first off, do you have an ERP? Because that's a pretty big thing. Like a TMS is great, but to a certain degree, Now, if you have an ERP, a TMS, and those two systems aren't talking, that's a crucial piece, right? Because that's the biggest part right there. And again, I could say that's the biggest part because, again, if that's like, if you want to automate something, automate that manual process from an ordering standpoint. PO gets kicked into your ERP, gets shot over to your TMS that's talking to each other, right? Now that takes away a bunch of time. Now you have to start building out business rules, right? And I can go, again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but that's where you got to go figure out too. Is like, what's your process like when you're picking out a carrier, right? You get a TMS. Half the time, okay, you have a TMS. What's your process like? How do you choose carriers? How do you look at carrier performance, carrier scorecards? Well, we just picked the cheapest rate. Okay, I understand that. How do you know that you're picking the cheapest rate?
Hey, time out real quick, Mike. Aaron asked, "What is an ERP?" Can you break that down so people that don't know what it is? Kind of
stores basically everything, all your information. It's a database. It just stores everything in there.
Right. So I think what happens a lot of times, Mike, and you're, with you selling a tech solution, automation, things like that. Do you think a lot of times people probably lose a sale, or maybe they get the sale and they have unhappy customers because they show the customers what it can do, all the bells and whistles, but what can it do for them?
Yeah, I mean, well, it comes to the point where it's like, okay, so no one's actually having these conversations, and this is where it ties into, not to get off track, but this is where it ties into having executive leadership in there, right? These are questions that, again, everyone has a role, right? These are questions like, hey, is this like customer service? Customer service is hurting because you're having to take an hour to get a PO, manually take a PO, kick it over to your shipping team. And then even with a TMS, it's not connected. Now they're having to quote out a bunch of different people. It's not doing anything, right? And I think it goes back to asking questions. Like, yeah, you can call the shipping manager. And if that's your sale, I'm not trying to switch anyone's sale, but if that's your sale, it's a problem. If you're just selling a TMS to sell a TMS and not asking certain questions, I mean, I won't say the name, but that big company, I mean, think about that. That's a $20 billion company. They got sold from a tech company, right? I would have never got into this company if I didn't have an in. Think about that. They weren't even integrated. Their TMS wasn't integrated into anything. It just literally sold them the dream on this data, and I get the data, and even the data is great, but what's your key cost drivers, right? Asking questions like not many people, if you ask those questions, don't even know what their key cost drivers are, right? So it's like simplify. Like everybody wants, and trust me, I was definitely that person. Learned technology, and I was like, we're gonna do it all. But it's like realistically, technology, automation is giving someone consolidated invoices or a CSV file, breaking down certain metrics that you guys agreed upon that's important to them, specific to them. Because one CFO might look at things from a cost per pound standpoint. The other one might look at it from a different standpoint, So it's like they're all situational, but little things like that are truly what more shippers need than this massive amount of like tech stuff. Like everybody preaches about it, and it freaks people out when it can be simple.
I agree. I think it's sometimes it's trying to sell, like, because it can be impressive for something complex, and that's something you put together that really covers a lot. Can be, you feel as though it's impressive. You really want to sell that, but it's almost like taking that and somehow finding a way to make it. At the end of the day, it's got to be simple. These guys are busy. They want something more efficient, and so it's that balance of, what do we do to make things simple? But I mean, we've got this, complex thing that a lot of people don't have. But here's how we make it simple. Here's what we do. Here's how we implement it, and here's how we continue to work it too. I mean, I think a lot of people talk about, not using price as a way to get in or whatever, but bringing some other value, and that's one way to do it, right? I mean,
price matters to a certain degree, right? But that's to say, like, if we could sit here and say it doesn't, I mean, but looks matter to a certain degree, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we could sit here. I know I can, and I have dated someone that was beautiful, but that was it, right? It's the same thing with price. It's like it does matter, and I want people to understand that price does matter, right? But I think that
But like if you get a call, like if I get a call from like my TV provider or satellite provider, or phone, whatever it is, and they tell me, hey, I get you at a lower price. You kind of, yeah, you want a lower price, but if they're saying, hey, I get you at a lower price, and here's what I can do, like it's automatic, I can make sure that it gets done. I can do this for you. It's real easy. It's nice and simple. This or that or whatever, and then you're kind of like, oh, well, I guess if I don't really have to do much, and you're going to handle it, it's going to make my life easier. Maybe
yes, you're right. API is good. It can be simple. Yeah, you're.
Hey, pop the comments up.
You can't even go. I wish you could see these comments, but yes, API is great.
You can't pop them up?
I can see them. I can see them on the right. It says private chat and then comments. I can see Aaron, Nick. We got Jeffrey Dickinson. What about the optimization of shipments? Price?
Yeah, what about the optimization of shipments?
Oh, here we go. Everybody's going to watch this. Everybody, we can do this. Have these. Okay.
Count to 10.
Yeah. Everybody, you read a book about API and everybody's a genius. No, but like it goes back into, it's like, listen, we want to talk about the difference, right? And I think that heavy tech companies need to either hire some savvy supply chain operations people that have done it, and then or vice versa. And because I've seen it. Who's the Flying Dutchman?
Nick, is that Nick Rumor? That's Nick.
Hold on. So here's I think I've said this is, listen, I bring really techie people in when they need to be in, right? Everybody has a place. And I think that, though, knowing these questions, again, it all goes back to what does your customer, not my customer, what does their customer, like my customers' want and needs are. It goes back to that. You can sell the world, but if they don't know what their customers' wants and needs are, and you can't tailor a program that fits those needs and wants tied into their initiatives, again, maybe a lower cost rate isn't what they need. If you don't ask certain questions, especially higher level, you're never going to know. And that ties into, you have to ask those questions when you are getting into technology, or you end up being the people that give you a TMS, sell you a TMS. I call into the company and it says, I'm like, wait, you pay that for that TMS and you're just rate shopping? Oh man, no.
So I'm going to shift gears just a little bit because we talk about optimization within operations too. And so I think that's one thing I was excited to talk about, because I think as margins get slimmer, as the transportation logistics world is shifting, within any brokerage or 3PL, automation is super important, right? But again, if you have a process down and that you can automate it, right, and that it makes sense, I think, in my opinion, again, people come in with all this tech and they show you what all the cool things it can do, but how can it apply to your business? Because every brokerage model is a little bit different. Every tweak is a little bit different. So TJ, what are some things that maybe that, and again, not prying into Circle or anything like that, but what are some things that you can give some tips on that may be better to automate versus?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that, especially as we've grown, we've started to sit down and have quite a few meetings about. And you really look at it, at the end of the day, at any brokerage, a revenue producing role, it takes precedent to most that aren't. And if you look at a non-revenue producing role, a track and trace, some of the admin stuff, carrier compliance, some of those things that instead of having 4 people in carrier compliance, you've got one that is kind of like the end all be all, but you've got it automated to where the carrier packets are online, everything's automated that way, right? You've got track and trace, with EDI, and you've got the track of everything that's automated, right? And yes, does it decrease, I think, some of your workforce from that? Yes, but at the end of the day, those non-revenue producing roles weren't paying much anyways, and really didn't give you much of a an outlet to grow with. They were needed, and so I think when you look at it, I think a lot of what the revenue producing stuff is being able to negotiate rates with a carrier, being able to bid or work or service a customer. I think those things are I think you can add some automation in there to make it easier. But I think, you look at especially in a brokerage or even trucking in general, The non-revenue producing roles that just kind of filled gaps and got stuff done are the ones that are really going to automation.
So Vitaly asked in our comments, why are margins getting slimmer? Anybody want to touch on that?
I always look at everything. So, I mean, I don't.
If they're talking like just overall in the market, there's a lot of awards just came out. So there's a lot of RFPs that just went live.
Let me ask this though.
February 1st for a lot of live dates.
We talk about margins getting leaner. Okay, so I always say is that goes back to let's put aside the rate, right? It goes back to I know you guys. I preach about it all the time. Cost to serve. Step up. Put the rate aside, right? Explaining to this person or this customer, hey, do you guys know the cost to serve by your products and the location and customers? Well, no. Well, how about this? Let's show you exactly what the cost it is, the actual cost to serve that customer. And then let's make a game plan. And I'm not saying that we're going to be able to change the entire process, right? But those the ones that, hey, you don't have to beat the carrier up because we were able to increase profitability on those low margin customers or lanes by just fixing the way you priced or allocated your freight into your pricing model. So now that your margins stay the same, right? I'm happy, the carrier's happy, and now what we were able to do is, for instance, this is just one situation. You were able to negotiate, hey, listen, order mins, right? We fixed your order mins. Now you gave your customer a discount. Instead of them ordering 4 times a month, they're ordering once, but you knocked off a couple percentage points and gave them a discount. They're happy now. And not only did that, that's what drove your supply chain cost down or freight cost down.
So I think
are you
real quick, I think that's good. I think that's a good point. Yeah. At the end of the day, when they ask why are margins getting slimmer, it's just the reality of it. So we can talk about that all day, but you can't change the whole entire industry. So over industry,
I mean, at the end of the day,
but I'm just trying to touch on the question here real quick so we can get that answered. So like right now, a lot of it has to do with RFPs coming out, awards being given, contractual rates being accepted more often. Overall, as Vitaly had asked, overall margins being slimmer is there's a lot of big push, especially in the big brokerages for volume. So when they're really pushing volume, you're pushing at a lower margin, but you end up with about the same profit or more opportunity. And so when you get more volume, just looking at the process or the infrastructure of a brokerage, then you shy away from the cradle to grave model, right? The spot bids are limited, so the automation does increase when it comes to when you increase volume that way. So the customer service may go down a little bit. Some of that automation may help fill the gaps there, but a lot of times it's really a big push for. And who was talking? Who's the commission lady? She's so great. Beth, yeah, she talked about that. Her commission structures that she's doing now are very, very based on the volume of how many loads compared to margin or whatnot.
It's loading margin dollars.
Margin. Like if you're not going to get 15% margin, you're not even going to book the load. So it's just it's a whole different scaling of that on that end. And that's
now we're going to go down the rabbit hole of compensation. Compensation drives behaviors.
That's the thing what Mike said. Just flipping it, the backside of that, Mike. Mike's a little bit. I'm just talking more about broader general brokerage margin.
I'm mad. I'm mad.
Hey, Vitaly, I as a broker, I would love cost plus because I mitigate all risk. And I will do it all day long. As a shipper,
hey, think about this though. Think about this. I forgot who I was talking this to. Maybe I'm a one-off, right? But I've always said being trans. This is just the way I've always thought about it. Is listen, everybody's got a price in their head, right? I'm mindful of everyone's time. I don't got fucking time to waste. And usually people I meet with, I don't want to waste their time, right? And that's why you have to kind of meet at a higher level, right? It's like, hey, is this worth it, right? Long haul. Usually people that are always just so price conscious and only think about price, they're not getting in the long haul. They're not going to be wealthy. They're not going to be profitable on that if you continue to do that. So why not have a meeting of the minds, dude? Everyone can sit here and bitch about why it's not right. But if I could say, hey, listen, this is what I'm going to run. We'll show you what I'm going to run. Is this make sense? And if it doesn't, let's negotiate. It's called negotiation for a fucking reason, right? Don't be an order taker. It's like, listen, man, I don't want to go to bed at night knowing that I might not have these loads. It's like, I got to feed a family too. Do you want the guy? You pay peanuts, you get monkeys is what I say. So I'm walking away from that. And then you can go get the guy that literally will take anything.
I love that. What happens with that is, like, normally, and I've seen this before a million times, they go with the cheapest one. But what happens, like, stuff gets screwed up. They come back to you, Mike, can you please help us out? I told you so. Right?
Well, here's the thing is, it's like, that just, like, again, you have to, when I was younger, and I'm not going to say, like, I was like, you know what I mean? And it's even today, right? It's like ego gets in the way, but it's like, you got to really think about it, especially because of, like, the way I was, like, I never really was, like, looking for shipments, right? So it's like, I had to learn. It was tough, right? I had to learn the hard way, because it was like, a lot of people do burn you, but it's like, it just saves a ton of time, at least in my opinion.
It does. The translation from that to, and then if you look over on the operations side, I had put a post out about it, about the, I can save you 20%, the whole thing. And that was the biggest thing there was, at least in my experience on what I'm doing here, and how I'm selling is explaining the process. So you're gonna have to lead in with, hey, listen, my rates are going to be right around market. I mean, I'm not gonna say I can save you 20% or anything, because at the end of the day, that doesn't guarantee you a truck, that doesn't guarantee you capacity, but here's why, right? Here's what here's how this is what we do. We build, you can't come in with low rates when you don't have a carrier network built around it yet. I'm sorry, but you can't. Like, you don't have those carriers you can reach out to yet. You got to explain that. Like, hey, I got to be able to build a dedicated, solid carrier base around your freight before I can start talking, before we can really start lowering rates. Our goal is to lower the rates, of course, right? But finding a driver that wants to run that lane, that lives within that lane, right, that lives on either end of it or right in the middle of it, will take that load for a lot less, because his wife's happy that he's home, than a guy that another company's deadheading 200 miles over to run it each time. So explaining that it takes a little bit of a process to do, but what your process is the way to do it. Because if they want instant rates now, they're going to get burned. If they want to work towards those lower rates, then we're talking.
I got an example of this, dude. And it just, I won't say any names, but who I'm talking about. Founder of a company, we're probably past 2 weeks, probably did like 25 grand or something like that in shipments. And dude, it was just a nice process, right? We took him from another 3PL. He was like, Mike, this is where I need to be. Can you guys make it happen? I said, yeah, I can make this happen if you give us everything. And I want to ride the wave with this guy, right? I was like, yo, bring me on. We'll do it for this, but we want everything. All good. This guy, and here's the service he gets though, right? It's like, we're going above and beyond. We're literally it's 10 o'clock at night. And those are the people that I'm going to give that I know, right? It's like, those are the people people need to be spending time on. Last night just proved to me how founders, and he's already sold a business to Vito Coco. The guy's a G. He goes, Mike, just go with the more expensive option. I want to go reefer because, again, just because it made more sense from a value standpoint, right? He was getting the dry stuff, was getting his stuff like literally protect from freeze, right? So even that mindset of like cheaper is not always better, and just like, let's cut through the noise. Let's stop beating each other up. Mike, I'll give you everything if you can give us this price and come through with your operations guru. And you know who I'm talking about. And Bay, and that's the people, again, in my opinion, I'm not telling that anybody has to do this. Those are the people I'm going to work with. Those are the people I want to work with. And it's just a lot easier life.
Qualify
you know what we've done in the past? We've had like 3 pillars, right? Cheap, fast, and good. Choose 2. You can't have all 3.
I like that. I like that.
Like, so I can do it cheap for you and fast, but then it won't be that good. You will probably lose something. It won't be on time, whatever it is, or you can have the quality, but then you pay for it. Right? So choose 2 out of the 3.
Like our partners, every partner we have, or a significant other, we all have flaws, right? It's, you said no. Do we,
I have flaws.
Can we tolerate them, right? I always go back to like personal life, right? Even in business, right? I mean, business is business, but I'm always like, okay, listen, this is the way they're going to be, but they value me. I can deal with this, right? And I think it's more times than not is on our end. I always say it is, there's more order takers than resources. And, there's a lot more to do than just say, hey, I can give you a rate. Because, you got to start stepping. Again, I don't even need to get into that. I don't want to be an order taker.
So Vitaly said, sorry not to interrupt. Vitaly said, seems like everyone has low rates, but service is another story. Well, Vitaly, I think you've seen that just because of the way the 2020 market is. I think that, according to freight waves and everything else, that you're starting to see a correction. People are, RFP season's out. They're contracting at higher rates. So your spot market's going to be lower. Most people in service on the brokerage side, and I'm not sure who you deal with, it's not as important to them because they can grab that margin, they can grab those dollars somewhere else. But as those spot loads start to decline, you're going to see people really, really come back out of the woodworks and be like, hey, you still got that lane? You still got that lane? It's like California carriers. Hey, I ain't talked to you in 6 months. You still run that lane?
Mm-hmm. That's even crazier, dude, that you guys probably hear me talked about it, but people do that with their LTL, and I just that is if anybody is on here, please go watch some of my LTL videos. Stop it. Stop brokering out your LTL to every single buddy. Okay, listen, if Starbucks can have 17 carriers and do 70 million, you don't need 25 LTL carriers doing $1 million in freight. God, please stop.
I like Jeffrey Dixon said, use the 3W rule. You have to have a win for the shipper, a win for the carrier, a win for the service provider. If one W is missing, walk away. That's a great comment.
I think that there's got to be a reason why, right? And it goes back to when I talk about having executive leadership, they're the ones who have to preach, why are we doing this, right? I had this conversation with Tara from ex-vice president of supply chain at WinCup, and she was like, it was our job, change management, right? To express, hey, this is the reason, hey, operations, I want to get you to learn about the finance side of things too. This is the reason why we do these things. Hey, sales, this is the reason why you can't go out there and just do this. Everybody has to be literally everybody, it sounds corny, but everybody needs to be involved when they're touching any part of the supply chain. That's how, again, I always say, get in front of it when you're an emerging growth stage company. I was about to say CPG because that's pretty much all I focus on, but any company, right? Get in front of it now because it's a lot easier to pivot when, you're 100 million, 200 million.
And that applies too on the brokerage side for any operation within a brokerage, any automation or any change in process, how does that affect accounting? How does that affect billing? How does that affect POD collection? How does that affect
commissions?
So on and so forth. So,
the only deal I probably got screwed on from communication where it's I've learned the hard way. I say, hey, yeah, cool, dude. You can do net 30, net 60. I got you. And my credit reaches out to them because communication, right? It's that's why it's very important to know all those things in general, even on our side.
Hell yeah, we're salesmen. Hey, you want net 120? Okay, all right.
Listen, we got a new program. It's called Free.
Hey guys, I gotta go get my hair cut. So I'm gonna cut out. I appreciate all of you guys. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me chat. I'll see y'all next week.
Love you, dude.
All right, love you guys too. Appreciate it.
I think more or less though, I'll end it on this, on the automation side or tech side, I think, and again, take it or leave it. I think it's just, the bottom line is, I think it's fair to say is, just asking more in-depth conversations about other things inside a company is going to allow you to really pull out things that we talk about. What's a challenge? Let's put aside the trucking for a minute, right? Because there's a lot more challenges. It's hey, listen, maybe accounting, right? They are having to spend all these hours looking for quoted versus billed. And then when they do find a quote wasn't matching the bill, they have to go track down all these other logistics people in their company, asking those things. And if you can find a way, if your company allows you or has the tech to, or, has the capabilities of being able to automate that process, that goes a long way too, right? Not only does it help that accounting person, controller out, not only does it help the CFO out because, again, now he's got cleaner, accurate data, it also helps that logistics person out having to get beat up by by Carol in accounts payable saying, hey, why the hell aren't these matching? So it's like, but you have to explain that. And before you can even get into that, you have to ask.
Hey, throw the, there's people jumping in that are new to the show. Throw the topic in that little scrolly thing. They're asking what the topic exactly was, the main one. But, and then Nick, touch a little bit on what you're seeing. I mean, I know you're, it's related to, transportation and whatnot, but just, automation compared to, those that aren't as tech heavy and what you're in your world, kind of what you're seeing.
Like I think automation and tech, right, is the way forward. The reason why people are not jumping on the bandwagon is because, one, they're scared, and why they're scared is because they don't understand it.
Yep.
And that's,
I like that. Yep.
Where when someone doesn't understand it, get educated on it. But that's our job. That's my job, right? Like when it comes to tech, that's my job to educate people that don't understand, to make them understand why it will benefit them. Mike was touching upon it, saying like even at accounts payable, if we can make their process go a bit smoother, save them time, which means save them money, right? At the end of the day, it's all about dollar bills. As simple as that.
What was that post I posted? It's it's cheap, or saving a company money. Think about that. Saving a company money versus I'm cheaper.
Right.
It's like that's a long-term play, and it's like,
yep.
Again, I don't need to I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Whoever's watching, you can take it or not, but that you say that to the right person, and you have you have more in-depth conversations about their business versus just the shipping. You think about things in a more high-level approach. Things start getting a little bit more interesting, a little bit less away from price, and it just it's just different.
But I think that's why that applies to everything. I mean, if you really think about it, like what I was talking about earlier, I'd said that, we couldn't be, necessarily cheaper right off the bat, but we're going to work to build structures around it to drive the price down. That's saving you money, right? That doesn't mean that we're not coming in being cheaper. We're working to save you money. Our job is to find a way to create a process to bring in what we have, our resources, and what we can bring to the table to save you money, rather than, hey, we're cheaper.
And like in my world, and that's just like, I hate the word cheap, right? Because cheap and quality just are not aligned.
It's like I'm embarrassed. If I had Sprint, I'd be embarrassed. I consider Sprint like cheap.
Yeah, because you can say like, we're cost effective, right? That's like you're still saving the money, and I should say like when you save someone money, that means that their business. You've done your research. You know what you can do for them. It's about them. When you say we're cheaper, it's about you getting the shipment.
And that's where it comes down to, just again, the verbiage does matter for sure. But you don't want them to see it as that, because at the end of the day, there just is people that want that. So that's what I made the reference the other day about, a nice restaurant, the highest quality restaurant, the one that brings the best service, usually asks you how you want your steak done, how you want things cooked. They build that meal around your appetite, like how you like things, right? But it's a lot more expensive than having, 30 things that are pre-made and pre-priced that you can pick from. But at the end of the day, there's still people going through and getting the dollar menu. Why? Because they don't care. It's just easier for them. They don't value that. And so that's part of it. I mean, there's a lot of customers that bring brokers in and stuff and just beat them up and move along and they're done with it. So, but those are the ones you want to work with, right? So if you can find a way to, bring that value, people are willing to pay more, right? Or not have to even think about price. Like you walk in there, you're not thinking about, you already know you're going to pay a decent amount of money, but you're going to get the best meal you can get.
See, but that's the thing is, it's not even so that it goes back to, it's like, that's why I always like to say is like, I like to tell people how I get paid. I mean, I'll never forget it when I was very young. I was a year on my career as CEO. I was like, I'll save you whatever. And he was like, Mike, a shitty paid sales rep is a horrible sales rep. That's when he said, let's have a meeting of the minds. Tell me what you need to make, if it makes sense. And that's what I really thought about it. And that's just like, again, that was a simple, and I was like, damn, that's right. And dude, I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't burn me, but I let people, like I've always made money in this industry off the margin and residual, right? So it made sense to me to always be like an all-in, right? Long-term relationship versus I know people that make money off revenue, right? So it's like, boom, we're getting paid quick. That's why I get the whole, hey, we get bait and switched. You're going to bait and switch us. My business model I'd be the dumbest person to bait and switch you, right? Because it's like I get paid off residual commission. I'd rather go lean. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. So I'll go leaner, give you more attention. Because guess what? I'm not making money off this again. And that was just the way I was able to explain it. I don't make money till 3 months after you ship. This is when I first started my career. So, sir, either I'm an idiot or I'm just straight up honest. And again, that's up to them to decide, right? I got to prove that,
but it's showing that that's what builds the trust, is that up front. So just again, on the other side of that, I remember when I was dispatching drivers, I had, quite a few drivers and we were slinging some freight, but I used to tell them how I was paid. I told them, I was like, listen, I'm paid commission. Owner operators make 65% of the line haul, whatever here, but like it's, so you can't be paid off margin because the margin is always the same. So I was paid off, a smaller percentage, but off of revenue, how much revenue I brought in. I wanted them to know that, because every dollar I put on you makes me money. That means that every broker I'm talking to, if I'm getting a backhaul for you, I'm trying to get as much out of them as I can. Every time I'm working with a customer, I'm looking to get as much as I can. Like, I wanted them to know that, right? That's more of a trust thing, to where now if I'm looking for a load for them, I don't have to call them and run it by them. They know that if I'm offering them a load, it's probably the best load out there. I've literally called all of them, because I don't get paid very well if I don't have the most revenue, right? Which makes them more money. So it's like the reverse of that, Mike. It's funny how the different structures, because you were saying not on revenue where you're at, right? But at the same time, it's still transparent. It's still showing them that they can trust you, because what your pay is tailored to what they need.
But this is the main thing where you said trust, right? No matter, because whatever model you're in, whether call it the cheap model, but if that's your model, if that's your strategy, fine, right? Run with it. If your strategy is the long-term one and quality over price, fine, then that's your strategy. Whatever strategy you have, run with it, but then run with it like full 100%.
You just said it.
And make sure that your clients know.
Expectations, right? It's like, I always said this. It's like, I'm going to use this again. I would always see in college, right? Guys would just date women, pretend they wanted it. I'm telling you the truth. And I'd be like, I think that's just a waste of time. I'm going to be upfront. If I don't want to use anybody, right? I want clear expectations. And I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, I'm like the best person out there. But at the end of the day, I just realized, like, again, I'm so mindful of my time and other people's. Yep. Dude, guess what? This is what it is. Is this going to work for you? And if not, no harm, no foul. We're good, because guess what? That's, at the end of the day, I can respect someone that I don't do business with that was just straight up direct, said, hey, listen, I see it your way or I don't see it your way, but I'm not going your way. Versus the person that has, strings you along, and I'm talking business, says, yes, we'll do this. Because
it's an innate thing that's in you, that you're like, for some reason, people feel they're going to let people down or something. And so, like, I remember, it's funny you said that, Mike, when you relate to that. When me and my wife were just dating, and she'd be like, that girl, over there, or she was at the party or whatever. If she would just say something like that, and or bring up anything about cheating or anything, like ask, they just ask questions sometimes just to see where you're at. I would straight up tell her, I'd be like, listen, I need you to understand this, Ashley. If I didn't want to be with you, I wouldn't. Like, I'm not going to waste my time. Like, if I didn't want to be with you, I wouldn't. If I thought I felt as though I had to go be with another girl or cheat or whatever, I'd leave you. Okay. I just want you to know that. And she would get like upset at first, like, well, and I'm like, well, would you rather have me tell you that? Like, well, I'm obviously still with you, right? Like, I'm still with you for a reason. Like, if I didn't want to be with you, I'd go be with somebody else. At least you know that, like, I don't want to waste my time. I'm not going to go put the effort into cheating. Like, that should make you feel better. But it's hard sometimes for people to hear that or even say it,
But think about this. I always say it in my head. It was like, why jealousy? And I don't even want to get into that. But it's like, dude, it is what it is, right? If someone tells me they love me and we're together, if someone tells me is upfront with me and says, hey, we're doing business, you're getting everything, I can't go around my entire life thinking, oh my God, they're gonna cheat on me. It's like, dude, Think about this. Mark Samuel, I know what I'm bringing to the table. He's my guy. Freight guys blow him up. I got other customers. Freight people blow them up. I know what I'm bringing to the table. I know our communication, and that's it. You got to take it for what it is, and you got to trust people. If they're doing what they say they're going to do, and you guys are talking, great. If it doesn't sometimes end up screwing up, yeah.
I think it starts with confidence in yourself, though. If you don't have confidence in what you bring to the table, you don't trust anybody else. And so that's what, when I look at Mike, it's funny you say that, same thing on I look at, my employees, I don't micromanage. I've seen a lot of managers even that I've worked with that like are burned out and wear themselves out because they don't trust what they're always digging in, figuring out what they're doing. And I always tell my guys, like, you're going to get as much trust from me as you need and freedom until you give me a reason not to. Right. I mean, like, because I'm confident in the processes, the standard operating procedures, the resources and everything I provided you. I've given you everything that I'm confident in. If you don't succeed, it's on you, right? Because I've laid it out there. And until you lose that trust, you're going to have it, right? Because I don't have time. It gives me time then to, look higher level, think farther out, continue to make us better. And it's funny how that works though, because the more you micromanage, obviously, then it's because you don't trust, right? It's because you're wondering what's going on or whatever. But people end up doing worse. They hate that. It's almost like they rebel on purpose.
If you just tie everything back to life, man. I mean, if you really, I could get deep into this, and I'm not trying to change the world, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like the way people are is kind of trickles into the way they are in business, right? I've always said it, and it's like, call it what it is. There's just a lot of people that don't know how to communicate with other people, and they need to work on that. Maybe it's not even a business, maybe it's not even a logistics thing. It's just in general, be who you are. It's like, then like, I mean, it's just great.
You say it all the time, just be real, right? And that's like, in a lot of posts I put, like, I always refer back to you, like, as in like when, like how real you are. But it's true though. Like, I'm not and that's the same in business and clients. And it's like, the problem is, I think too many people in business is that they're so involved and so personally involved. If a customer says no, or we're moving or whatever it is, they're hurt because it's almost like they feel like they're so personally attached.
It's not personal. Literally, business. That's what you got, dude. That's probably, and I can sit here and act bad, but it's like my biggest strength, my biggest weakness. I wear my heart on my sleeve, right? I had to figure that out quick, and it took longer than ever because it's like when you go in 110 miles a minute for everybody and you're getting burned, trust me, it's hard. But you got to start, whatever it is. I mean, that's the hardest part, right? You just got to take it for what it is. And
realize that, like, yeah, you could wear your heart on your sleeve, and that's going to bring value, right, in business. But you still got to remember what the business is about, because I know what you're talking about, Nick, and you put all your eggs in one basket and you're so emotionally invested. But at the end of the day, it's business. And once you realize that, you keep your pipeline full, right? Because you're always keeping opportunities out there, because you know that no matter how much this customer says they love you or they take care of you, whatever, they still have a boss, right? That boss could fire them, right? And then they don't care who you are and they drop you. Now you lost everything because that's all you did, right? Because you had nothing else in your pipeline, nothing else lined up. It's not as much it's just more of a protective thing, but
more of a confidence thing. If you let personal life or professional, if you are literally basing your confidence, your happiness on a single person, or letting that person dictate, and I'm talking about business too, dictate how you're going to go about your day, you're screwed. And again, if you want to talk about mental health, you got to mentally just be in your own head, knowing that, hey, listen, I got this shit. Like, listen, that one customer, if they can leave today, I'm good, right? That one company I work for, they could fire me today. I know what I'm worth. I'm good, right? That one significant other, they could cheat on me, leave me today. I'll be all right because I'm all right.
And that's the key part, is like having your pipeline full, just not just with other customers or whatever, but like just opportunities. So I've always talked to like younger guys that you're growing up, and my wife always gave me a lot of freedom or whatever, but like they're so invested in their significant other that they don't have any hobbies anymore. They don't take care of themselves anymore. They don't hang out with friends anymore. And listen, everybody's different, and no judgment here at all. All I'm saying is that, like Mike said, if that person did leave you, you got nothing. I mean, you got to have something that can continue to bring you confidence in other avenues. It's not like it's, you have to use that time to take away. You just got to be more efficient with your schedule, maybe, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if that person leaves you, you're not left with nothing. You've still got hobbies that can keep you healthy and keep you confident. You've got, friends that can help, talk to you and keep you, mental health is key, and having your more than one basket and eggs and all of them is a lot better than just,
But this is, again, like business and personal, like it's always so intertwined, right? Because when you say like like you become who you surround yourself with, and sometimes you lose yourself, right? And that's the same in business. And I've done it. Like I'm guilty of that. I became my client. I wasn't me anymore. The values I had all of a sudden dropped, and I had their values. And when they left, because that was when we were working for one major client, when they left, I was hanging dry, and I felt heartbroken. And that's sometimes you need to learn the hard way. That way, that you just do you.
I always said is there's certain points that change your career, right? And I met a guy when I was 2 years in, private equity guy, and that just changed we ended up talking, mentor. He got me into a lot of stuff, right? And I was like, man, this guy, because I was kind of at that stage where I was like really businessy, and I wasn't myself, and it was kind of like a weird vibe. And then I was like, man, this guy is probably at that time the highest person I have ever met with, and he sees value in me. It's like that's kind of where it's like I started realizing like that's where I think I made a switch, and everyone has their own switch, right? I made a switch in my head where I was like, I'm just gonna be me. I could still be me, right? So now Ron, get the expert on.
And what's real though, Mike, if you really think about it, if you're really yourself, you'll weed out the people that don't like it, right? Because at the end of the day, like they might not like how you are, which is good though, right? Because then you're not wasting. Again, your time's not wasted.
Think about this. Unless you're a piece of crap, I always appreciate it. I might not agree with someone. I might not that for whatever reason. But if I've always said I respect someone to a certain degree that can just be who they are. They are who they are. And I trust that person, right? It's weird is I can hate that person or not like that person. But if that person is just straight up who he is, who she is, there's a lot of, it's a weird thing, but it's like, I trust that person.
So I want to touch real quick on why we have, how we sat down and thought about this with Rhonda, with how busy she's getting and everything. It made her schedule more efficient. But what it does is if you guys really watch these shows, and I told Rhonda this, you can only touch so much on the operational and sales, and every single discussion at the end starts tailoring towards the mental, the personal. It always ends up going that way, right? Because that's the only avenue left. And it goes to show that actually plays a role in everything that we do. And so I think that's what's drawn Rhonda to this industry as much as it has. And I think it's what value she brings. And so it's funny how I told you, Rhonda, last week, how if the transition was perfect. It was like, we ran out of stuff to talk about. We already touched it all. We started talking about mental stuff. Here comes Rhonda. Boom.
It's interesting because when we spoke about changing the show, TJ, I had mentioned to you, I've actually had several different organizations in our industry reach out to me to talk. As a matter of fact, I did 2 interviews today, and it was all about what service do you provide to Global Trans, and how do you think that benefits your team, and what should we be doing as a industry to help foster healthier workplaces where people feel included, there's diversity, there's different personalities, there's trust, there's communication. And one of the things that I mentioned was through having people on your side to not judge you and to really listen to your intimate concerns, or maybe you need some self-development, or maybe you had a recent conversation with someone and you're feeling that disappointment, like Michael was talking about. There, so much of our lives are spent at the workplace, and it all translates into our home life too, particularly if we're working remotely now. So it's really important to first, for listeners, and hopefully everybody does this, is practice self-care, self-compassion. Give yourself a break, but be authentic. Like, really examine, what are your goals? What is your role in the industry? Is your heart in it? Like, are you passionate about it? Because if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be able to do all the things Brandon talked about and you've talked about, Tony.
And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. There's something for everyone.
It's okay that like logistics is not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, if you're struggling on it or whatever, and you're down on yourself, and you're just, what happens is the negativity starts or whatever. And it's like, this may not be for you, and that's okay, because it does take a different type of person. It takes a different type of spouse. I'm sorry, but it does. I mean, there's a lot that plays a role in it. And if there's a different passion that you have and go for it, I will support you all the way. Literally, like whatever you need, letter of reference. Like there's no hard feelings here. It's just part of it.
I just laughed just because I was like, it takes probably a different type of spouse, regardless if I was in logistics or not.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I'm like, yo, that God bless her soul. No, I'm not that bad.
I'm actually different strokes for different folks, right? So it's just, but it all has to start when we look in the mirror, because if we're not authentic and presenting our best self, everything else is going to fall apart, and we're never going to achieve that success that we're.
Well, that takes practice, and I'll say that I will openly say it. I remember I went to. I went the first time I called it a life coach at the time, but I went through a really bad breakup or whatever. I was engaged, and I went to that person even after I was fine. This lady took me to the next level, not only 10x my career and my personal life. Like I will always, like, we work on our bodies to look good. We dress nice to have this appearance, man. But if we work on our brains, and this is just coming off the hip, like I love, it's crazy what it's done for me. Like, it's just insane. Like there's certain things that people can just help you with. I mean, they're trained professionals, right?
Yeah.
For help, even if you just want to vent, it's amazing. Yeah. And I'm all for it. Like, I want my brain to be stronger than my biceps.
Well, I can hear it. I can hear it when you're speaking, Michael. I can tell that you've had exposure to different things
like radiation
to create that, like you have that growth mindset and you have that confidence, and that takes, learning and failing and examining yourself, and then the desire to want to kill it. Like, you have to have that killer instinct to be good at whatever it is, and you can't fake that. So really,
it's like logistics, right? It's just like in general, it's like, I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, Rhonda, but it's like, if someone hasn't gone to therapy, you'd be surprised. I don't care. I mean, you can think it's corny, but you'd be surprised on the stuff that they can pull out. Yep. That just like you get to utilize. It just makes you so much mentally stronger, and it's just an amazing. It's an amazing feeling. I guarantee, hands down, would not be. There's not a chance I'd be where I'm at today.
Well, it teaches you how to deal with adversity. It teaches you how to manage that in a positive way. Sorry.
And being out there, that's very true, Rhonda. Being out there and just having a little bit of, it comes with experience. I had put on a post out a while back, but it just really rings true with me. And I always tell people this, but, one thing I realized when I became, in management and whatnot was and this is selfish, but I struggled with the fact that why people didn't have the same work ethic as me, like why they didn't want it as bad, and why I would come across as almost rude kind of. But I looked at my life and where I was at compared to some of them, right? Some of them were 23, just out of college, living at home. Like there's certain, so it made me kind of reflect on my life. There's certain things that it is what makes it click. Mm-hmm. There's certain things that click for you. And I think for me, it was when I had my first child. I finally I wasn't working for myself. You know what I mean? I was working there's no stopping then, right? Because, I'm working for my children to provide for them, right? To provide a house and food and college and all these things that you start working for differently. I want to be able to, I remember when I first had I was in an industry that I loved, but it was like not paying very well. And I had student loans. And I remember walking in the house and just feeling this sick, stomach, because I'd see my kid, and I knew I was in debt, and I didn't have, I wasn't able to provide certain things, and it was a terrible. I told myself I'd never feel that again. And so there's just something that clicks, and so you got to realize some people haven't hit that yet.
Yeah, right? I was gonna say they're different. They're different transitional points in our life that allow for opportunity if we're open to accepting that, and then going that way, going full in and being open, like we talked about last week, to listening to people that have your back, having that mentor, have that coach, that person that you can say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I'm having some self-doubt, or here's what I'm interested in. Where should I go to really learn to develop some different skill sets? So
don't you think sometimes you don't even need to have an actual coach or mentor. Just speak to someone first.
Yeah.
And then that's how I started, because to be honest, I was like this. I was like, I don't need it. You know, when you're at that stage, when you're like, no, I don't need anyone to talk to. Just like a friend. That's it. That's like, I don't need a coach or a mentor or whatever. I do it myself. And then I spoke to someone who told me, like, you know, like I was killing it at work, right? I was killing it. I had a business plan every time, like every week, like for a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, like, you know, everything. And then he asked me, do you have a life plan? Like, no, I've got a business plan. I was like, where's your life plan?
Yeah.
And that put me back to square one. And that made me think completely different. And like since then, and I think anybody who's not done a life plan yet, speak to someone who has, because it changed my life.
I remember that's funny you say that. I got to touch on this because it's hilarious. But like, he's our VP now, and he's been my mentor since we started. He took me under his wing, always believed in me, taught me everything he knows. But when I first came in, he's like, we were just talking about something, and Bill, I don't know, something that I knew that he didn't know or something. He's like,
I'm going to leave this on because I won't catch it. I got to get this call.
But he said, he goes, listen, I'll tell you right now, I can book freight with the best of them. I'll take anybody on it, you know, whether it's, you know, landing accounts, booking freight, I'm as good as it gets, and I'm confident in that. But I suck at everything else in my life. And, you know, it was kind of joking, you know, but, you know, because he's talking about how, you know, his wife paid the bills, his wife did this and stuff like that. But he was just able to bring in the money and work. But I thought it, you know, I thought it was funny, you know, whatever. Well, then, you know, especially in logistics, I mean, it's uncapped. There's so much potential. I found myself doing the same thing. I found myself like, I just remember there was this one month. It was like 2 or 3 years ago, and this is embarrassing, but I'm gonna tell it. I was hitting stride. I was top producers in the company, and my electric got shut off. My wife got home and said, "Why is everything off? Like, what happened?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I did pay my electric bill." And that was like my moment. Like, okay, I can't be amazing at freight and suck at everything else in my life. You know what I mean? I gotta figure a life plan, right? I gotta have something together here, because yes, it doesn't matter how much money you have, if your electricity's not on, you're in trouble. So there's such a huge balance to it.
Well, that life plan too, it can change depending on if you're single, if you, for some reason, you have a life-changing moment, if you're trying to start your own business. Obviously, for people just getting into the business and just starting out, their time is going to really be more focused on developing those skills and building that business. And it's just knowing if you are good with that, you know, and communicating that to the people in your circle. And then once you get yourself going, it's all about reevaluating your time, reevaluating, where your mind is, how your emotions feel, how your body feels. Are you healthy? Are you sleeping? Are you anxious? You know, are you irritable? Or are you happy and enjoying the process with, you know, obviously the stress, the good stress that comes with,
like, just the last one for me, like on that one, as in, that's another thing I really needed to learn is when you transition in life, in business, whatever it is, you've got too many people hang on to the people that they've been with for so long. And I'm not saying like, you know, their spouse or whatever, but like friends as well, or people in your life. It's okay to let some people go. And like, it doesn't mean that you need to fall out. But some people, when you're transitioning into the next step in your life, and those people are not at that same level, they're somewhere else, they want to go a different path, it's fine, let them go. You know,
grow out of them. You grow out of those relationships, and if they're not contributing to you becoming a better you and moving forward, it's okay to go separate ways in a good note, and still, you know, as needed, check in every now and then. And, you know, we all have friends like that, you know, friends from when we're younger.
But the communication's key. When I learned how to balance my life with logistics, because like I said, logistics can be you could work 24/7 if you want. And I was, I mean, and so I like that, Rhonda, that you said that, because I used to talk to my wife, because I had mentors here that knew what I was going through. They'd been through it. And I always compare logistics when you start your career to, you know, going to the ocean, right? When you swim, you know, you got to swim through the surf, right? You got to go through the waves. You're going to get hammered. You're going to come up top, and then you're going to get sunk, and then you're going to come up top. But after about, you know, what is it? You know, 100 yards, 200 yards, you pop up in the clear. Any beach, you know, in the ocean, and you kind of come up for air, and you look around, and you're like, holy shit, I had my head down for like, you know, circle, like we grow so fast. I had my head down for so long trying to just make it through. And now I'm like looking around like, where am I at? You know, how's my life? And so I would communicate that to my wife. I would tell her, you know, hey, listen, I know it's not gonna be like this forever. If I can just get to this point, you know, and it does help to communicate that because, and same thing with friends. I mean, like I found myself being so busy and taken down that like, I wasn't being rude, but like somebody come over to me while I'm doing something and I knew I have to get this done.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty ADD too, if you can't tell. And they'd start to talk to me. I'd be like, hey, listen, can you come back in like 5 minutes? And sometimes they're kind of shocked because they're in the middle of saying something. And I'm like, listen, I literally, I'm only asking this because I want to listen to what you're saying.
Exactly.
I think what you have to say is very important. Like I could tell, and I'm so busy with this that I don't want to not listen. So could you come back? And so like that right there, like that's hard to say sometimes because people like kind of take it weird at first, but it works. And I continue to do it. It works because people get it.
And sometimes it's important to do that with our leadership. If you're getting thrown all these projects left and right, it's important and you're starting to feel the stress of all that. Yep. And now you know you're not going to give it each thing your focus. Throw it back at them. Hey, what's the priority? Like, what's my number one to do today? Like, what do you need from me? And you know, all the communication, it all comes back to those relationships, making sure we have each other's back. We all know, you know, the more everyone is committed to their role, the more successful the ship's going to navigate the waters and the bumpy roads. So, I mean, that's really key.
Yep. So, guys, I appreciate it coming on. Nick, I always told you, Tony had to bail last minute. And I started talking to her. I was like, hey, Nick's our number 6. Well, it was number 5. Ron is our 5, 6.
5, 6. Yeah. At least if I'm top 10, I'm okay. That's
he's always been our backup. You know, if we're in a pinch, he's available. He comes in. So he's been on many shows, and we've been able to get him on for a while. So when Tony said he wasn't coming on last minute, I started thinking, I'm like, dude, this would be great for Nick. And then Rhonda texted me. She said, you know, Nick was available. I was like, sweet, let's do it. So thanks for coming on.
I'm always there.
Perspective, great accent. And Rhonda, of course, like I said, everything leads into this and it wraps up great. I think everybody can relate to it.
And I really think that we're going to see more people in the wellness and mental health and array really diving in.
Just off the phone to Kenneth and like, man, like he's a guy in the house. Well, he should have him on one day.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, I'll be out in Las Vegas this weekend with a bunch of people from the industry. I know Jolly will be out there, Tony, Brandon, conference or whatever. I don't know how much I'm supposed to share. I don't know.
I saw something post about that.
Quite a few. You'll see pics and stuff. So if anybody's going out there for that, they probably know what I'm talking about. So hit me up.
Make sure it's a live broadcast because I asked for a live stream at Mr. Greg's, but I don't know if they're able to do it.
Oh yeah, Griggs. Yeah, he's gonna do that. Cassandra's doing her show. She's gonna be there. She's gonna do her show from there.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. I'm gonna put on a shirt and some shorts and sandals and drink a bunch of beer and relax a little bit. So
have a good time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
See you guys.
Good seeing y'all.
Can we hit end?
I don't know.